And it's the first virtual session that we have tried. And, you know, with COVID, we're all evolving. So happy. Thank you very much, Heidi, for working with us on this and helping bring attention to the work that we do as a society here in Vancouver Island and studying the ancient life here. And, you know, doing that through, in this case, through your eyes and some experience that you've had in Alberta with Dinosaur Park. Now, here in Vancouver Island, it was mostly been marine over the years in ancient times. So you don't find a lot of dinosaurs in this area, but we find a lot of other really interesting and intriguing mostly marine life that does, you know, help to understand, you know, how this land evolved and how it came to be as it is now. And paleontology, you know, is a big piece of contributing to the understanding of climate science as well. So Heidi, I'm very pleased to be co-hosting this with you, and thank you for the platform that we're working on here this morning. And if I could start with just some housekeeping things before I turn it over to you, Heidi. As Heidi is giving her presentation, if you have questions, we'll be taking questions without. If you could use the raise hand icon, I'll be monitoring that, and I'll be monitoring the chat. And throughout the presentation, I'll be asking Heidi to, you know, take pauses and address any questions along the way. And do know that this is being recorded. It is being live streamed on Facebook. It's also being recorded for access via YouTube, and the link will be available on the Victoria Paleontology Society's website and Facebook page, as well as other places. And but if you do not want to be part of the recording, you're happy to, as the presentation starts, just turn off your video. And I guess with that, Heidi, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry. And I just want to echo what Jerry was saying. This is a great thrill for me. So nice to see friends and family and new colleagues out today, people I haven't met before. And yeah, it's just really exciting because Dinosaur Park, for those who know me, know that this has been a passion of mine since I was a young art student. So yeah, so thank you again. I also want to acknowledge that I am also on unceded territory of the Cheyenne, which is the First Nations here in what used to be called Smetchosen. I've just learned this recently, but it has been anglicized and is called Metchosen. So anybody in this area knows it as Metchosen, but it's actually called Smetchosen in the Cheyenne language. So any of you are also welcome to acknowledge your local traditional hosts as well in the chat or using the audio. And I just wanted to add one more thing too, Jerry, for the housekeeping. If you find that your internet is a little bit unstable, be sure to turn off your video and make sure that your audio is muted, because that can help. I sometimes find that my internet is a little bit unstable out here as well in my studio. So anyway, with that, I will share my screen and hopefully everything is going to be working. Let's pray that to technology complying with our desires today. Okay, hold on, please, while I get this up. Just about there. Here we go. Okay, can everybody see the screen okay?
Yep.
All good.
Looks
Yes.
good? Okay, great. So I'd like to make one other acknowledgement too, just for Xchanges, artist-run center in Victoria, founded in 1967, is a nonprofit registered charity, which I have belonged to ever since we lived here in Victoria. So we're going on 21 years now, and I'm also the president of Xchanges. So this is one of the things that we do is we try to offer as many free community activities as we can through the year. And so I'd just like to encourage everybody to get to know Xchanges Artist Run Center, Gallery and Studios, and also my own international artist residency, which I'm running here at my studio now full time. So the three groups of us together are putting this presentation on. So thank you very much. So what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to talk about the tour of the park. Basically, it's part art tour, part travel log. Some of the history that's influenced my work, and I want to show a lot of art as it has progressed over time, and what I'm hoping to do post-COVID as well, because I was supposed to go to the park last summer and be the artist in residence there. And because of COVID, all of that has been put to the side, and this summer it's probably going to be the same. At the end, we'll have some time for questions, and I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation, I will be able to ignite in your imagination and desire to visit this place and get to know it more. So what and where is Dinosaur Provincial Park? So I put this up because every time I talk about Dinosaur Park, people say, oh, it's Drumheller. It's not Drumheller. It's in the region for sure. But in fact, I put two maps up. One is showing how you get there from Calgary, and the second one is from Drumheller itself. Actually, I'm going to get the laser pointer up here. Hold on a second so you can see that. Hopefully you can see this big red dot. So here's Drumheller, and you go all the way down here, almost 2 hours to Dinosaur Provincial Park. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1979. And it's really recognized for its huge amount of diversity of dinosaur and vertebrate fossils. They have a saying in the park that if you drop your hat and you don't find a fossil, you're not in Dinosaur Park, and it's really true. It's really an amazing area of the Badlands in Canada, and it has some very unique riparian habitat as well, which I'll get into a little bit later, but it's really well known for its unique stand of cottonwood trees. And when you're there and the cottonwood is letting go off the trees, it's quite a spectacular event. And so we move on to the next one. Hello, come on. I also wanted to show you this little map about the UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Canada. Many people are not aware that right now we have 20 across the country. And Alberta has a lot of them. There's quite a congestion of World Heritage Sites right in southern Alberta in this area, including not only Dinosaur Provincial Park, but Head Smashed In, Buffalo Jump, and the latest one is called Riding on Stone, which is another beautiful area. And of course, the Rocky Mountains, and there's quite a few out here on the east as well. And amazingly, to me, I just picked up this research recently, was that there are actually 42 proposed and tentative sites at play right now. So there are 10 being proposed in British Columbia, and also 10 being proposed in Quebec, as well as other places. There's only a couple of places that are not proposing to have new UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and one of them is Alberta, because I think they already have enough. Anyway, here's the big view. So let's get to the pictures. I'm going to start off by showing you some slides of what this big area looks like. So the wide views. And one of the things I wanted to say as well is keep your eye out for funky creatures coming out of the hoodoos and out of the landscapes. Like here's this big fella down here. Whenever you turn around, you're going to see things in the stone and in this topography that is quite shocking. There's quite a few caves, and some folks are actually studying the bats. There are 8 different kinds of bats in the park. I actually have never seen a bat when I was there, but I hear that there's a lot of them. Here's another view looking out towards where the river is. The river runs all the way through this area, and it's quite spectacular. When you drive across the plains, suddenly you just drop down into this massive valley of the Badlands, and you have no idea what's coming. It's quite a remarkable event when you come. And when I went in 2017, I had this moment of nostalgia where I was like, oh, am I going to have that feeling again? When you come across the plains and then you feel like you're just dropping down into this huge valley. And yes, I did. So I have to say that never gets tiring, and it never gets old, although this is a very old place. Here's just a slight close-up view of it. And I was fortunate too to be here at the time of year when it was still looking really green. We've been here in the past when it's very dry and it's looking quite blonde and yellow, but it was still looking quite nice and green. When you're in the park itself, one of the wonderful things, of course, is this vast network of trails. You can hike and hike and hike for hours and hours in the park, just on your own self-guided tours. The trails run all over the place. And that is one of the great things about being out there, is that there's also these tours. You see these little buses, there's only a few of them, but the graduate students are in the park every summer. And they're studying paleontology at the university. And so they come and work at the park in the summer, and they lead these fantastic excursions out into the bioreserve. And you can only go to the bioreserve with one of these guides. They're small groups, so you never feel like you're getting lost in a crush of, hundreds of tourists or something like that, especially during COVID. Obviously, that's not happening. But you're not going to feel like you don't get attention, and they teach you lots about doing this type of work, the paleontology, the digging of the bones. They identify everything for you. So it's quite exciting. This is an actual map from their website as well. I just wanted to give you an idea of what it's like when you go there. So when you go to Dinosaur Provincial Park, you're actually going to camp. Now, many years ago, the first time we went there, they didn't have, they only had outdoor camping like this, but now they have what's called comfort camping as well. So that's kind of nice. And they have a really good setup for folks with RVs. So whatever you need for your RV, sandy stations, electricity, all of that kind of thing, they have all of that. They have a wonderful visitor center. And this is one of the things too, people have often said to me, oh, is that where the Royal Tyrell Museum is? And it's not where the Royal Tyrell Museum is. This is the field station for the Royal Tyrell. And what that means is that when they go out into Badlands and they do their digs and they bring the bones back, this is where they bring them. And they first assess them. They store lots of bones here. They document everything and then prepare them and then ship them off to the Royal Tyrell Museum. When you go to Dinosaur Provincial Park, they have a great program there where they will actually take you into the labs where they work, and you can do a little bit of casting yourself. And they teach folks quite a bit about the work that goes on there, which is great. They have a very small Cretaceous cafe and basic supplies and a laundry room as well, because definitely you're going to have to be doing laundry when you're there. The maximum amount of time that you can camp at Dinosaur Park is 2 weeks. So if you want to stay longer than that, then you would need to rebook it or get a special permit. Lastly, one of the things I want to point out is you see all these roads looping around. These are gravel paths. They're not really roads. This is definitely paved going in, but then at a certain point, they stop paving things. This loop, you can drive a vehicle or a bicycle all the way around, and this looks deceptively small. It's a huge area. And there's trails that you can access all the way in. And when you see one of these buildings, this is actually dinosaur bones in situ. So when you go up, you're going to see basically an exhibit that's enclosed in and protected from the elements. And there will be descriptive signs and that kind of thing explaining the history of the site and who found it and what the dinosaur is and all the background that they can provide around that. You come across these quite a bit through the park, which is really nice. It's a lovely surprise when you find one. There's also the Cottonwood Flats Trail as well, and these are fairly long. Well, depending if you're the super fit type, it's probably not long at all for you, and you need to be, going on a lot of trails all through the day. Or if you're somebody like me and can handle a few kilometers, that's enough for me. But it's hot as well. They've had temperatures in the mid 40s. It's a little bit like going to Greece some days. So when you start hiking 2-3 kilometers, you're looking for shade, and make sure you've packed some water and supplies. And I wanted to show you what's actually in the field station as well, because the people who really love dinosaur bones, and of course that's most of us, get really excited when you come into the Field Station Museum. They have beautiful exhibits here. And there's over 49 different species of dinosaurs from this period, the late Cretaceous. It's about 75 million years ago, and that have been found in the park itself. So 49 species, that's a lot. It's about 4 to 5% of the world's known dinosaur species. At the park, they do claim to have the largest Cretaceous find in the world. And they'll also have on display here things like turtles, turtle shells, fossilized pollen and spores, plants. It's just incredible, the displays that they have. And the park geology as well used to be a lush coastal plain. And there's some maps that you can see in the field station that show this huge Bear Paw Sea. It was called Large Inland Sea. And yes, it would have been quite amazing. And they also have a theater inside the field station, so with air conditioning. So at certain times of the day, it's pretty busy with people going in to watch the movies.
Heidi.
Yes, can you see it?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Just wanted to acknowledge that time period you're talking about, a fair amount of the sites that we go to as the Victoria Paleontology Society are also in the late Cretaceous.
Right on.
But very, very different landscape here, and very, very different situation in how and in what the land was and how it came together here.
Yeah, amazing, hey?
Mm.
We have such rich histories.
Yeah,
Okay,
very rich fossil heritage in BC and here in the island.
That's great. Okay, so I just have one little slide.
You're on mute.
Can't hear you, Heidi.
You're on mute. No, you went back on mute.
Heidi, that was a glitch at my end. I went to mute myself and muted you instead. Okay. we're learning as we go. I apologize.
It's okay. Am I unmuted now? You can hear me?
You are.
Okay, good. Woo, woo. All right. Anyway, yes, so I was saying there are, besides bones, of course, and fossils, there's lots of flora and fauna at the park. Lots of rattler snakes. In fact, when I was there on my last trip, one of the young guys who were running around collecting rattlesnakes from under trailers and such. Nobody had them in their tents, thankfully, but they did find one near my camper. It was a good size rattler snakes. You'll also see really big bull snakes. Bull snakes are harmless. There's nothing to worry about there. There's also 165 species of birds and mule deer. We're used to smaller deer here in Victoria. The mule deer are very big, and they have these large ears as well that really do look like mules. And you'll hear lots of coyotes at night, hawks and golden eagles. And I mentioned already that there's 8 species of bats, and there's a lot more, of course. It's a very, very, for being a desert and having a very sort of barren landscape in many ways, it's amazing how much wildlife you will encounter there. It's great. So, and I had said bones everywhere. So these few slides are really about the bones and what you'll see. So you'll just be walking along and suddenly you'll see a big fragment of bone. And sometimes you might think this is actually just on its own, but you have, what the paleontologists teach us is you have to keep looking, following it along, and then you find more pieces along, and if you're on a slope, sometimes they'll be falling down the slope, and these are the trails that we follow, actually, is looking at the bones. This is on one of the digs I was at, and the paleontologists were showing us how to apply this glue to hold the structure together. Dinosaur Park has basically been dug up by millions of tourists over the years. And one of the things that they talk about quite a bit is the fact that if they didn't have visitors to the park helping out as volunteers doing these digs, and you're out there for a few hours, so how much can you really get done? You actually do get a fair amount done, because the landforms themselves erode every season with the runoff of the snow and rain and ice. And sometimes bones just start literally extruding out of the hoodoos. It's quite amazing. This one, for example, was quite exposed. But then they, what they do is they go and they, oh yeah, that looks like this big piece of rock above, which is probably, a few tons of stone above, might actually be housing a whole skeleton of some sort. So they will want to glue them. Here's another one just laying out there on the ground. So if you like fossil hunting and you like exploring, you're going to find lots of treasures. Here's a good example here on the left-hand side of the screen. And you can see our guide here with his boot and the size of the bone that's there. It's quite amazing that you can just go along and these things are just kind of laying there as a prize waiting to be found. And this is just a close-up showing the bones. Okay, so now I'm going to pop you back to a little bit of human history in the area, and I'm going to take us all the way back. Sorry, not that far. We're not going back in Cretaceous history, my history. So Michael and I first went to this area, Drumheller, the northern part, an hour and 45 minutes away from Dinosaur Park in the early 80s. And even before the Royal Tyrell Museum was built in Drumheller, there was nothing there. It was literally a ghost town. And, but there at one time, it was a thriving area of mines. The East Cooley area, which is where we ended up spending quite a bit of time, had an old mine called the Atlas Coal Mine. And we came upon old huts where the miners used to live. Actually, some of them could only accommodate a small bed, and that was it. Only a small bed, and that was their accommodations there. We rambled around. Here's a historical picture of some of the workers who also worked on the rail lines. So those were the two big groups of workers in that area, were either working on the railway or working in the mines. There was a lot of labor unrest through this period as well. Anybody who's interested, I have some links I'm going to share later if anybody wants to look up the labor history. But I wanted to show you this piece of artwork that I created. This is a lino block print from about 1988 after that trip, and I called it East Cooley Residue. And just about the workers and the people who also died in the mines and on the railways as well, building railways. This is also some work from that time period. So this is a mono print. It's called a mono print, which means we only pull one. And it's basically using printmaking inks with various solvents on a metal plate with brushes and rags to wipe out the white areas and then run it through a big press. And this image here, again, this is where the hoodoos started really creeping into my work as well, is called Night Chase, and it's an etching. So this is on a metal plate, and it's the lines and the grooves are actually etched in with acid. Oh, going the wrong way, sorry. And then this one as well from the same period, and these hoodoos now are protected. When Michael and I first went there, these hoodoos around East Cooley, Drumheller were just open on the side of the road. Anybody could climb up them or ramble around on them, which we did, definitely. This is a lithograph, which is a kind of print that's created on using heavy stones, a flat stone that you draw on with a kind of a special pencil for lithography, and then etch it with this very sticky stuff called gum arabic that also has nitric acid in it as well. And then you roll it up with inks and put it through the press with paper, and you can pull your prints that way. This is again another lino block print. And this early work really found its roots for me in drawing and printmaking exclusively. I actually stopped painting for about 4 years when just working on printmaking with using these images. I was really terrible at making anything square when I was in the print studio as well. Printmakers can be very technical and very detail oriented, and I wasn't. I was more like, I like the big shape. So this print is actually about 40 inches wide, and it's comprised of several different pieces of linoleum that's been carved and rolled up with ink and then put back together and then printed through a press, a big press bed. But little things like little offsets of the printing, which, you know, normally you'd think of as an error. I actually liked the little surprises and the little accidental things that happen from experimental techniques. And there's another one just using cutout shapes. So the shapes, I remember my instructor at the time too said to me, she had never met anybody who had such an obsession with shape in this way. So linoleum, printmaking and I got along very well for that exact reason. And this is a large print as well. It's probably 30 by 40 inches. Okay, so I've got hoodoos on my mind. We didn't take another major trip back to the Badlands until the late 90s when we moved back to Ontario for a spell, and our kids were quite little. But I always had it in my mind that I wanted to get back there. And so I continued to blend these ideas into my work about personal histories and symbolisms. And, you know, there is that, I can't remember what the word is off the top of my head, but there's this tendency for us to project, you know, human figures into everything that we see. So we see eyes, we see noses, we see elbows, body parts, that kind of thing. It doesn't even take any imagination to see that with these hoodoos. And so sometimes when people have looked at my work, they've said, how did you really see those eyes? Well, yes, you do. You do actually see them a lot. So here's just a few more slides on some of the work that uses the imagery of the desert and the hoodoos coming back into my work. And these organic shapes as well, because again, I resist anything square. So, but this is a frame that's commercially built, and so I can get away with it that way, but I can't make a square line for my life. Here's another one here. This is an oil on Masonite, and the framing actually is created with foam, like foam that you would use for furniture making, and velvet. And the velvet was all reclaimed velvet from little girls' dresses. And this is another one, Ode to Frida. And this is an installation view of this particular exhibition at Xchanges, I think around 2004, something like that, 2006. And this is my studio, which you can see in the background here. So finally getting around to having a studio where I can work on larger paintings, and you see one of them there. This is just, I took this picture recently. So I did begin a large series called Under the Influence, and that's the title of this talk, of course, which is about these paintings. All of them are 48 inches by 54 inches, oil on canvas. And I think I probably have about 10 or 12 of them now. Just slowly is growing over time on this size, but I do have several that are another size. Okay, this is the big moment. And this was like a deciding moment in my life. It was 2017 in the summer when my brother Dean here and my sister-in-law Sue, who I'm not sure if they're online yet, but they pulled a prank on me, which was the best possible thing they could have done. They tricked me into going to Dinosaur Park. Wow, that was hard. Actually, he said he was going to take me to the Black Hills in the Dakotas. And I said, Dean, we can't go to Black Hills in the Dakotas unless we go to Dinosaur Park first. And he fought with me, and then finally he agreed. And I met him at met both of them at Dinosaur Park. And it turned out that they had planned all the whole time that I should be here. And they set me up with this rig, beautiful camper. It's basically a 1-bedroom apartment on wheels, and everything I could possibly need for 2 weeks. And then they took off on their motorbikes and left me at the park by myself. So it was fabulous. A real game changer for me. It really woke me up to the fact that I needed to spend more time doing this work on my own, and that I needed to be engaged at the park itself in a very serious way. And so I'm going to bring you back to my points of inspiration here, the hoodoos, of course, back to the hoodoos. And I would go out every day for at least 4 hours in the morning, just hiking through the hoodoos on my own. put a little backpack together with my water and some art supplies, and just head out with my camera and my walking poles, of course, because there's not a chance I'd be able to do all that hiking without a pair of poles. One of the things you notice when you go through here is these rocks on the top of the hoodoos, and you see some of them have actually lost their tops. This is called iron rock, so it's much harder, and it's the reason why we get these beautiful shapes falling down, because this material here is much softer, and it just, in the springtime, at the end of the winter and early spring, it's actually dangerous to try and hike around the hoodoos because they become so slippery. You can't even get around. And that's all caused by water erosion running down and carving it out over millennia. It's fabulous. And sometimes you see the little iron rock caps there fall off, or they slide down, and you find them in different places. And of course, when you see these piles of rock here, it's all broken iron rock that has, finally fallen to bits. And there's some of them here. You see the little ones like this poking around. They remind me of mushroom caps. And one of the fabulous things I love too is towards the end of the day when you get these long shadows. It's great. If anybody online likes to do photography, it's a fabulous place for taking pictures at the end of the day. The light is spectacular. And I'm just going to show you a few little things that I did at the park. These are like my little field notebooks. And I have to say, some of the most tricky sketching time in my life, because one thing that the camera does not pick up is the mosquitoes. So there's, while I'm trying to get these drawings done, I'm being madly attacked by hordes of mosquitoes and other flies and bugs. And yeah, it's quite a challenge. It's not a small feat actually to be an artist at Dinosaur Park or anywhere in the Badlands for that matter, because as soon as you stop moving and you sit down and you try to park yourself to actually draw something, or,
And Heidi, that's the beauty of looking for fossils and studying Vancouver Island, is we don't have to worry about mosquitoes.
Yeah, I know. It's such a bless. Such a bless.
It is.
Yeah, Alberta, I tell you, and then the heat, it's just unbearable. It's 40 degrees and you can just feel it running down your back and under your arms and down your face, and you're trying to get this drawing done. And I was just mortified at how little I was able to accomplish. I would go back to the camper at nighttime, and after having run back to the Cretaceous Cafe and grabbed a shower. There's a shower house there, so you have to stand in line waiting your turn with the other tourists there to get a shower, and then finally get back to the camper and try to look at the photographs, look at the drawings, and see, well, was I able to do anything worthwhile today? And some days it was just humiliating. I'll just be honest, it was humiliating, because I thought, geez, I thought I was going to get all this work done, and in fact, I never felt like I got that much work done, in fact. But that's another reason why I must go back. And when I do go back, I want to spend 4 or 5 months, literally 4 or 5 months, working straight in the park and be able to go through the seasons as well, because it's open all year. They do not close the park. So it's different all year round as well. Here's just a little bit more showing how the work has changed over time. And I only noticed this one on the left here, this abstract painting was really from a series of work I've done about vertigo and my experiences with vertigo. But as I was rifling through all my files the other day, I thought, hey, I can see the influence of the hoodoos in here. Not even like Okay, the color, yes, the colors are a little bit brash, but just some of these shapes and forms, and perhaps that's inevitable at this point. Things are going to show themselves and reveal themselves like that even in abstract work. If I can see those shapes in the hoodoos, then they're just going to start coming out the end of the paintbrush however they like. And these three here are half the size of those other big canvases. So they're 24 inches by 48 inches high. And I put them in this order because this was a much earlier one that I had done from about the middle of the 2000s, 2007, I want to say, something like that. This one was done more recently around 2016 when Miyoko was here. My first artist in residence from France. She was here when I worked on this one here. And this is called The Kiss, after Gustav Klimt. And the little kiss is happening here for anybody who knows that work. And then this one I did in 2019. So this was 2019, and just working with a very light monochromatic palette and much thicker paint as well. So this work here is done on wood panel, and these two here are done on canvas. So it changes quite a bit. Okay, and let's see what we've got next. Go the other way. Oh yes, so what's next? Can't believe it, it's already 1:45, Jerry.
I know, time flies.
So as I kind of mentioned earlier, I've had this dream to go and work in the park. And when I say work in the park, I want to work intensively in the park and just really immerse myself there for several months at a time. And to do this long-term kind of artist in residency project. The last trip when I was there in 2017, I went out on a guided tour with a paleontologist and 2 other people. And we went out to the far eastern ridge. And we came upon this one area of the ridge where these golden eagle, cliff-dwelling eagles put their nests. And I had my telephoto lens with me. It's a 300. So in fact, it's not even a great photograph at all, but it does give a sense of how big these nests are. And I became fascinated with this whole abandoned golden eagle's nests and the scale of these works. Actually, they're like earthworks on their own. Probably the length of this nest is probably maybe 10 feet long, okay, from top to bottom. And I've tried to find out if there's any research been done on these nests, and I haven't been able to find anything either from ResearchGate, like actually scholarly sites. So nobody's really studied them that much. So I would like to do some work with them next time I go. The golden eagle, I've got some fast facts for you. Cliff nesting raptors, the golden eagle is the largest bird of prey in North America with a wingspan of 6 to 7 feet. I always thought the golden eagle was smaller than the bald eagle, but apparently not. The population of golden eagles in Western Canada ranges anywhere from 2,800 to 3,200 each year. But they are actually found everywhere in Canada except Nova Scotia. What's up with that? I don't understand, but the golden eagle is the most common official bird in the world. It's the national bird of Albania, Afghanistan, Egypt, Mexico, and Scotland. So highly popular. And there's a big observation site in Alberta and BC in the Rockies where they see on average during the nesting season, they see on average 200 golden eagles a day in this high migration area. And it's quite a spectacular thing to see. If anybody's into bird watching or eagles or any of that kind of thing, check this out online. It's quite something. And let's see. Oh, here's one more fact. When hunting or displaying, golden eagles can reach speeds of almost 200 miles per hour, making it the second fastest bird in the world. I would think that would be spectacular to see the golden eagle as well, doing its thing that way. I can't even imagine that, but apparently so. Okay, and so here's something I'm going to share with you. I haven't shared this with anyone, so drum roll. The golden eagle's nest got me thinking, like, could I do something with sculpture, installation, maybe even projections, or something in the urban environment to sort of bring these beautiful natural forms, and as well as the golden eagle's nest, also the hoodoos, into urban centers. And so I started to go to Google Maps and just play with the idea of what would it look like if the Brookfield Place Tower had a golden eagle's nest on it? Wouldn't that be something? Or what about downtown on 7th Street Southwest in Calgary, you know, just on the street, if there were hoodoos just protruding out into the walkway? And in fact, you'd have to have these pylons around because people might trip on them. But anyway, I started having a little bit of fun just imagining the spectacle that you could create with bringing the Badlands to the other Badlands, the urban centers, with, you know, eagles' nests and hoodoos on the street. And then there's another one with the Great Plains Recreation Facility, playing with this idea of intrusion, bringing the hoodoos in and extruding also in the building itself and out, in and out, and also with the golden eagle's nests. So just having some playful thoughts there. As artists, we tend to do that. We go into imaginaries that, you know, we ask the question, what if? Wow, could you do that? Is that even possible? Well, I don't know. With Photoshop, we can actually practice and play with that. I stuck one other little hoodoo in here too. It's coming in and out, sort of lodged in the glass. So anyway, I don't know if anybody would ever give me permission to do such a thing. For those ones, definitely you'd have to get permission. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but that's where we may be going with that in the future. And so that's it. That's the end of my show, my talk. So thank you very much. And I will hand it back to Jerry. And if anybody has any questions.
I don't see any questions yet, but this is the time if anyone has any questions for Heidi. Heidi, thank you. That was wonderful. The photographs are beautiful, and I love the idea of actually bringing the paleontology and bringing that reality that we sometimes forget into urban centers. I think there's a bit of that happening on Vancouver Island, at least within. If you go up island, you have the Courtney Museum. And they haven't taken out into the community as such, but there's lots of beautiful artwork and lots of art expressing the ancient life that we find here in Vancouver Island. So as a member of our club, Heidi, you're going to meet some other artistic aficionados who are looking at the ancient life itself. And, you know, that married with what you see in the land, I think it'll be some very interesting conversations there.
That definitely.
Anyone have questions for Heidi?
I see some comments coming in on the chat.
Yeah. Beautiful, wonderful hoodoo paintings. Wonderful
Thank
inspiration.
You. Thank you.
Yes, I understand it was being recorded. Where can we find the recording?
Yes, we will post it up on YouTube, and it will probably be ready tomorrow. And then I'll send the link to Jerry, and Jerry will put it up on the site for the Victoria Paleontology Society. We can send an email out to everybody and let them know where it is.
Okay, thank you.
And as I had said earlier, I really it was great fun working with Heidi on this, and I'm really appreciate that Heidi's here talking about her experience. There are other artists who are working on depicting, you know, scientific depictions of the actual life, you know, that comes out, what those bones look like if you put the flashback on them. Yeah. And we have a gentleman from Ontario who is going to be speak to our society in May, about scientific illustration of some of the animals that has come out. So Heidi, you and your other artist friends might be interested in being part of that discussion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I see Catherine Kitchens saying, I love the woman in the hoodoo painting that you did. What was your inspiration aside from seeing faces or bodies? Yeah, you know, Kathy, it's a good question on that one. That painting, I actually had done a series of drawings prior to that, sort of pen and ink, large scale pen and ink drawings, and Chinese compressed inks, which give a beautiful texture. And I had been working with an image that I had started, which was 2 figures actually, male type figures, and one being on top of a hoodoo, kind of in a crouching position like this, and the other one embracing that figure and in a sort of protective way. And so when I did that painting, I was thinking about that drawing and how could I create that embrace with just one figure. So that's what I tried to do, was create the one figure with these arms that were embracing herself. Yeah. But it's that idea of loneliness. And I think when you confront landscapes that are so ancient, I myself personally can't help but feel this long timeline. And it's a very lonely feeling, actually, thinking about 75 million years ago. It's like contemplating the universe. You know, you get that dizzy sensation when you look out at the sky sometimes and you think those stars are just so many millions of miles away. So yeah, that sense of isolation, and yeah, I'll leave it at that.
There is a question for you there.
Okay.
How did you come across Dinosaur Provincial Park? Nicole asks.
Oh, Nicole, it was a fluke. Actually, Michael, you're on the line still. Is Michael still on the line?
I am.
You are. Do you remember how we did that? We just were driving back from Toronto, right? Back out west, I think. Or were we coming the other way from west to Toronto?
I think we went back and forth like a few times, but
yeah, but that one time when we came across East Cooley, that was just a fluke, actually. I think we just kind of went, oh, what's up there? We heard something, you know, we probably saw a sign or something like that, and we just said, oh, let's take a deke up there and see what that part of the country's like. So it was quite an accident. We had no idea what it was like.
We're always interested in any unique landscape that we had heard about. So we would go out of our way to just explore different places. Like I'm thinking also the South Saskatchewan River Valley.
Yeah, and the Milk River
was pretty unusual and fascinating. And
yes, yeah, I know. And it wasn't that far off the road either, Kathy. That was probably one of the things too. We thought, oh, well, we could handle an hour and a half. Let's just shoot up there and see what's up there. Right.
There's a question in the chat, about the UNESCO World Heritage sites.
Yes.
And it's from Nicole saying, what are the UNESCO World Heritage sites? I know there are dozens of them in Canada. The one in BC that's probably most broadly known as the Burgess Shale.
Yeah.
And that's ancient life that's a lot older than what you're referring to in Dinosaur Park.
I'm going to put a link in the chat right now. Yeah, I'm going to put a link in the chat for everyone to the World Heritage sites in Canada. So Nicole, there are 20 in Canada right now, but there are many more on the way. So I just put a link in the chat there for anybody who wants to look up the World Heritage sites. World Heritage sites are quite a process, and a very expensive process as well to get that designation. It takes many years usually. It takes 18 months just to get it into the pipe before anybody even looks at it at UNESCO. So, and I know, for example, Manitoba was one of the latest ones to get a UNESCO World Heritage site, and they spent about $2 million just putting their application together. So you can imagine the kind of research dollars and the kind of investments that has to go in to actually putting together a whole package for UNESCO to get them to make a decision on whether it's World Heritage worthy or not. So, and we seem to have a lot in Canada, definitely. Before I forget as well, I'm going to put a couple more links in the chat. One is the link to the park itself. So I'll just pop that in. And then the other one for anybody who's interested is this history of the mines and the labor in that area from the 1800s to about the 50s, like after World War II, mining and coal and all of that sort of collapsed as Alberta moved into oil and gas. They did far less coal mining. And so a lot of those mines just shut down. And there was quite a bit of labor unrest as a result of all of these huge changes that weren't just taking place in Canada either, obviously. These were global changes. happening in many other places as well. But if you're interested, the links are there in the chat.
I know the UNESCO World Heritage sites, some of them actually have a focus on the preservation of ancient life, and some of them are preserving the landscape.
Yes.
Anyone who's ever traveled back east in Joggins, Nova Scotia, I know that's a UNESCO site there, and you can see whole trees coming down the side of the cliff, embedded in the cliff. There's whole ecosystems there of 300 million years ago that are preserved, which is older than what we tend to find here in Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is Michelle still on the line? If Michelle is still here, she actually worked at Lansing Meadows, which is also a World Heritage Site, because she's an archaeologist and her specialization is in Viking archaeology. And she looks like she's offline now. But so she's done work there. The other place that's more of a cultural center is this old town of Quebec. So Old Quebec Town is a World Heritage Site as well, Quebec City. Kind of neat.
So no further questions?
I can ask a question,
Yeah.
Heidi. I'm just curious, why is this imagery so, stuck with you for so many years? Why do you think, what does it symbolize for you?
It's interesting, Olga. I was going to say the exact same thing.
Well, because that's, we're all curious. It's been with you for so many years. What is it that really impressed you like that with that landscape? You've been to many places, you've seen many landscapes, but that one seems to be the one that shows up in your work over and over. There's something about it. Can you talk about that?
Okay, I'm going to talk about it now, Olga. Thank you. Yeah, so why the obsession? And I like the fact that you brought up that I've traveled a lot of other places, because you remember when we were in Turkey, I loved Cappadocia, which is the central region in Turkey, which has these beautiful, also sort of hoodoo-like shapes in the landscape. We actually stayed in a hotel that was made out of one of these big fairy chimneys, they called them. But that landscape, I loved it as much as I loved it. It didn't stick to me the way the Badlands does. And, I think there's something very primordial about the Badlands. And that's why I was hoping Michelle was still online, because Michelle shares a bit of this as well. We encountered this in Iceland. So when I went to Iceland, there's volcanic landscape in Iceland that's similar in this way, much rougher, much harder. I mean, the Badlands has a sort of silky beauty to it that's very, very, it's smooth. When you look at those textures, the forms are just so luscious. I mean, I've always loved drawing the human body. Life drawing for me has been a practice through my whole life, and as an artist. And I was also a dancer. So I had a very sort of visceral, physical grounding in the world, artistically and physically in my body. And I think maybe that's part of it, Olga, is that real sense of the physicality of the Badlands. And without trying to sound, I don't know, sort of, I don't even know what the word is, but there is kind of a sense, there's an energy there that I did not feel that energy quite like that anywhere else. And that's why when I went back in 2017, I was like, am I going to feel that again when I go across the plains and I see this huge thing opening up? And I did. I got this mad rush. My heart was pounding. I could feel it in my head. I was like, I could feel it in my hair. And I was going, oh, yes, it's there. It's real. It's a real thing. It's not, so and that's why I encourage people to go there. When people say to me, oh, yeah, I was there. I was up in Drumheller and I went to the Royal Tyrell Museum. And I said, no, you didn't. You didn't go to the Badlands. You've got to go to the Badlands. Yes, there are some hoodoos there, but they're all roped off. Everything is roped off. At least at Dinosaur Park, you can get out and you can scramble around. You can get kind of lost out there, not in a dangerous way. I think, you'd always kind of come upon some clear path, or if you get onto an animal track, it's okay. It's going to cross over with a human track at some point. You will feel that. I think you will feel that. I haven't heard from anybody yet who hasn't felt it. So, and it stuck with me. So, yeah. I don't let go of things very easily. So I think that's part of it too. Kind of like people. I don't let go of people very easily either. So I hope that answered your question, Olga.
Yeah.
Fascinating as children how Adrian and Haley, when we first went there, I'd never seen them. They couldn't sit still. Like they just ran and explored. And it went on for days, weeks, actually.
Yeah.
That energy, curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. You could never, and Adrian's on the line here too. I mean, they would never object to going to Dinosaur Park. And the camping there is fantastic. I have to say, the camping sites themselves, they have these huge arbors and you're right in the hoodoos. So it's not like, you know, you're off on some kind of KAO camping ground thing. They've done a beautiful job there. Really nice job. And then when the heat's too much, like I say, you go up to the field station, ramble around the exhibits for a while and cool off because it's the only place. Actually, I think the Cretaceous Cafe has a bit of air conditioning too, but yeah, it gets a bit much after a while, the heat and the bugs.
Well, Heidi, I'm looking at the time. It is past 3 o'clock already.
There you go.
That's
Okay.
amazing. Yeah, fantastic questions. Thank you. You know, the passion that you talk about, it's the same thing that I think those of us who are the amateurs, you know, of the group in the Victoria Paleontology Society, it's the thing that takes us out too. It's that curiosity.
Yeah.
It's, you know, feeling the presence of the land and being out there and, you know, just, you know, taking out these pieces of life and seeing that, you know, this is a clue to things that happened, you know, so many years ago. And it's studying those and working with the scientists who are in the field studying those to figure out, you know, what does that tell us, you know, about a whole life that was so long before us that it's hard to imagine, you know, how long ago that actually was and how little time human beings have been on Earth compared to that incredible life, you know, that came before us.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, you know, for sharing your insight into what you know, see in Alberta. And I'm putting a link in, again, a link to the Paeleontology Society, our website. And we're also on Facebook. So if anyone's interested in, you know, what we do, welcome to come and find us there and have a chat.
Fabulous. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, so thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll stop the recording.